Hello, everyone. I'm Kamraun.
And I'm Billy. Welcome to the Horse Frog Podcast, home of your two favorite professional digressors.
Today, we will be discussing Book 5, Chapter 16 of Gardens of the Moon, a novel in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. This episode covers the first half of the chapter.
This podcast series is intended to be a companion to reading or listening to the books set in the Malazan universe. It's not a book review, and it's most definitely not intended to be a replacement to reading the books. Know that Kamraun and I know this series is the best fantasy stories ever written, and we are approaching it from a purely fanboy point of view, and there will be no critique, just pure love, baby.
Agreed. We will be covering the events of the books in a linear fashion. There will be spoilers for those that have not read the books. We will try not to spoil anything prior to us covering that portion of the respective book.
Now, quick warning, today's episode might, wait, now that I think about it, there may be zero violence, or it may contain copious amounts of life-altering amounts of carnage, the like of which no underage child should be forced to endure, possibly rendering them mute for life due to psychological damage you as a negligent parent let happen to your minor child. Are you happy? Show is not intended for minor audiences. Sorry.
Yeah, it's not going on kids' YouTube, put it that way.
I wouldn't. Well, that's some crazy stuff on KidsTube.
Yeah. Our show is listener supported. If you would like to support us, please check out our Patreon link on our website at horsefrogproductions.com.
And also, we'd really like to hear from you. Well, I would. Kamraun, maybe not so much, since he does the lion's share on the communication side
Take
of things.
Take it easy.
Send any feedback or comments to contact@horsefrogproductions.com.
All right, we have one addition today. My mom sent me a message after listening to the episode where Hairlock was ripped to pieces by the Hounds of Shadow. We were wondering if the consciousness was split between the shards. She asked if that would be similar to Leto II in God Emperor of Dune. And that's a great reference. I hadn't thought of it like that.
I love your mother for even saying that. I did not know that women even enjoyed Dune like we did. I know that they must like the show, maybe, possibly, but it's like I'm kind of blown away by that comment.
Yeah, my mom loves Dune.
That's awesome.
Yeah. We always joke about that book in particular.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's so weird.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of weird, dude.
Really strange stuff going on there with Hui Nori, the companion
yes.
woman thing to the god worm.
Yeah, and all that poor Duncan's brutality.
Duncan, Idaho, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness, another favorite all-time character I love.
Yeah.
But I was kind of looking on my calendar, and this kind of reminded me of something. Just by accident, I was looking toward my August family reunion, and I was reminded that on August 28th, it is in fact Horse Frog Productions' annual Hate Megar Day, brought to you by Horse Frog Productions LLC.
Oh, man. So for those of you that are unaware, I played a Pathfinder campaign, which is an offshoot of Dungeons & Dragons, and my character's name was Megar, and our characters eventually came to rule a kingdom in this campaign called Kingmaker, and apparently there was a Hate Megar Day. I can't remember what spawned it, but Megar being my character, one of my friends that was in the campaign told Billy that there was an annual Hate Megar Day, and so now it has been officially adopted by Horse Frog Productions.
All right. Make it so.
And out into the world, apparently, for everyone to partake in Hate Megar Day.
We're not talking about you personally. It's your character.
No, it's Megar, of course.
It's Megar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the denizens had plenty to hate him for. It was an evil campaign.
Well, that's right.
He did have his methods of extracting information from people. I'm not going to go into it right now.
I forgot that y'all were lawful evil. That's amazing. Yeah. That's just amazing.
I did have a pet owl bear.
Owl bear, right on. Okay, yeah. That's horrifying. That's horrifying sounding. Is that like a were thing, or is it? I mean,
if you haven't looked up what an owl bear looks like, it looks like a giant bipedal. Well, I guess they're not bipedal. They can get down. It's like a bear, but it has an owl head.
Oh my gosh. Oh my!
They're really cute.
That's and they're absolutely horrifying. I'm assuming.
No, they're really cute, man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Either way,
they're not big. Okay.
They get big, but I adopted this one as a. Would it be a cub? I don't know. It's an owl bear.
Like a chick?
A hatchling cub. Whatever the hybrid version of that is.
All right.
Okay. Let's move along. We've digressed enough between Dune and Pathfinder here.
Right. Okay.
That's August 28th, right?
August
Midgar Day?
28th.
Yeah, okay.
I hate
There we
Midgar
go.
Day, yes, sir.
All right. Mark your
So,
calendars.
unfortunately, it is Monday, so we're trying, folks. We're trying to get a postal holiday out of it, but we can't. We probably can't do it.
All right, chapter 16. The chapter begins with a passage titled "The Lord of Tragedy" from the Holy Book of Prayer. Quote, Decembra knows the sorrows in our souls. He walks at the side of each mortal, a vessel of regret on the fires of vengeance. Decembra knows the sorrows and would now share them with us all. End quote. I find it interesting that we have so many references to the Lord of Tragedy in Gardens of the Moon when there really isn't any presence of that god in the book. Would you chalk this up to world building at this point?
I think so, and for me, world building, that's kind of an interesting concept. I hear people talk about relatively newly, and I guess things that have been done are just things that have been done on a more subtle level. You know, Lord of the Rings doesn't have much put into that world. It's more about the folks, I guess.
Really?
I mean, I say that. I don't know. I mean, I have a hard time breaking things apart in what is considered world building.
I think of it as this. It's not our world or universe, rather. So Erikson was saying how challenging it is to write this type of fantasy. You have to paint the picture of that world in all of its forms. So whether it's a location that people are unfamiliar with, you have to describe the location, but you have to describe the peoples in that location as well. What customs they have, their culture, what they look like, their language, all that kind of stuff, right? That all goes into world building, plus deities, magics with a CK there.
It makes it official. And, but I see, and I overlook a lot of that stuff because so much of what I read, I say this, I mean, outside of Dune is actually, I know that Herbert himself looked very hard and studied ecology enough personally to know that this was a feasible planet, like at least a desert planet in which we could live. And so that he put a lot of thought into that physical world. I mean, I see people put some stuff into worlds, and of course, Tolkien is my big one for me, and I guess the other stuff would be early Edgar Rice Burroughs. But some people put a lot of stuff into it, and some people it can be very cursory, I guess, is what I'm getting at. So sometimes it's done in a way that you don't really notice it. And Erikson, to me, is of the latter, where he does a lot real quickly, but it's really depth, and I don't really notice it because it's all absolutely necessary.
What do you mean? Can you give an example of that?
Well, I mean, even like here. Like this poem at the beginning would most assuredly be Decembra's stuff because of what we know about him. This is very crucial kind of stuff, but it's like not crucial yet.
Right.
So, I mean, for him, it's in a way when you look back on it, especially as we look on this, it's like, is this all? I don't know. I guess it's to me, it's done in such a way I don't really notice it so much. And I hadn't thought about it in the way you had, especially. But Erikson has so many, in particular, he has so many races. So many customs and so many races versus other fantasies. You got humans are humans. It doesn't matter what they are; they're all humans. And then you got the elvish type characters, which are just immortal humans. And there's not a whole lot of looking into this stuff like Erikson to me has done so brilliantly, and so I love it. I mean,
yes. So when I think of some other scenarios where we've had more than just air quotes humans, right? Because Tolkien did just kind of stop at humans,
right?
Dune, wide variety in the cultures there.
Yes.
And this one obviously is kind of, you can just see based off the world building with the geography, he puts the peoples that would belong in that region in there. And there's it's a big world. I would say it's probably bigger than Earth, I think, given
which one?
Or the Malazan world.
Yeah, I think it's enormous.
Because I think given the number of leagues between the continents and how many continents we know there are, I think it does end up being larger than our world. I'd have to
it's very large.
They have some figuring to see if that it does in fact play out that way. Yeah.
Well, you're going to have to break out that micrometer and look at your new map. And
I don't know if that's to scale.
Well, that's true.
That's the thing. But again, what map is to scale? I don't know if Erikson's drawn a scale map, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, but we know Well, actually,
we don't even have a
know.
world name. You know that.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if I could get to it. I could get an estimate. All right, either way.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so world building, all encompassing in a fantasy scenario. That's how I use it.
Okay. It's just become a term that I have not heard until very recently because I've been out of the loop for so long until you brought me in with this.
Okay. We are taken to Lorne attending to her shoulder wound. She had returned to the camp to find Tool as she left him. He hadn't moved since dawn. I think he was standing over the marker for the barrow, motionless. The wound wasn't deep, and she applied a poultice to it, the application of which was challenging due to her needing to use one arm. Her thoughts drew inward again. She thought the attack on the 4 men had been foolish, and too much of Lorne had been coming through to the surface lately. This interfered with her duties as the adjunct. She was making mistakes she wouldn't have made a year ago. Tool's words had deeply affected her, and she couldn't let them go. Her emotions came to the fore and clouded her world around her. She clung to the title of adjunct as a defense mechanism against these feelings and as a lifeline to sanity, stability, and control. The thought of control made her wonder, what was the heart of empire, if not control? What shaped Empress Lysine's every act, her every thought? And what had been at the heart of the very first empire, the great wars that shaped the Talan Imass to this day? Another thought entered her mind. Through the gamut of life, we struggled for control, for a means to fashion the world around us, an eternal, hopeless hunt for the privilege of being able to predict the shape of our lives. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think a life of no surprises where everything goes to plan is a life worth living?
Well, when put like that, I would say no. But when she talks about the shape of our lives, isn't that kind of what we do? Is try to shape our lives in a general sense, like in a day-to-day kind of basis. I mean, not in a general sense. I'm not, I'm not looking like I want to know what I'm doing down to the minute, but I kind of want to know what I'm generally doing, on a kind of a daily basis, Does that make sense?
We do try to do that, but I think she's talking about control from the empire level, right? And so when you have no events, everything's running the same all the time. I don't know. Maybe you have decades where nothing happens, right? And then it's a decade of prosperity. Then there's upheaval. It's a surprise, not necessarily expected. It causes a lot of pain. I guess it's not necessarily a good thing.
Right.
But it does provide contrast. And contrast is necessary for happiness because you can't have just constant good stuff without the contrast. Otherwise, your brain goes to places. You become unhappy with everything, right?
That's right. Exactly. I agree.
I guess it depends on what level of control we're talking about. If I can control the cleanliness of my desk.
Right. That's a good thing. I agree. I'm limited. I mean, I've learned to be limited in my aspect of control. But it's like, yes, there are some certain things that it's like, I'm looking. I control the fact that I go to work, I make money, therefore I pay my bills, and kind of that kind of stuff. I want to have that kind of control over. I wish I had more control over making the more between the underpants and the profit part.
What do you need control over that? All you need to know is that something happens between the generation of the underpants and then the profit coming in.
Yes.
You don't need to know what's happening in the middle. All right. All right, for anybody that hasn't watched South Park, that's a South Park reference. It's the Underpants Gnomes episode. Go look it up.
It's worth your time, yes.
Yeah.
And silly, of course, is South Park.
Uh-huh.
Actually, they're becoming quite prophetic lately, but I will leave it at that. But it's kind of frightening how prophetic those fellas get.
Yep.
Prescient, I guess. Did you know they bought Casa Bonita, right?
Yeah, you told me. Yeah.
Oh, right on.
I love the fact that you gave me that menu. I still have it.
Nice.
I need to frame it.
I lost it mine because mine got carjacked. When I got carjacked,
okay.
It was in my car, so yeah.
I might have to send this one back to you.
Oh, no. You keep it.
Yeah, no, man. If you don't have one.
It's fine, dude. I'll live. I can live without my Casa Bonita menu.
Okay. I'm making a mental note. You frame that and send it to you.
If we get famous, no, you can get Trey and Matt to sign. They can sign it for me.
Oh, okay.
Then you can give it to me. I'll be like, oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah. I wonder if they do that. I'll have to look into that.
They'd probably be. I don't know. They seem like cool fellows.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Tool's words had given her a sense of futility, and now they threatened to overwhelm her. And I don't blame her. The things he's seen would change anyone's perspective on the world. Imagine what doubling our lifespan would do. This is orders of magnitude higher in length that he's lived.
I know it. He lives longer than continents. It's pretty much. That's saying something right there, or some mountains at least. It's like wow. It's I remember when that used to be a mountain. It's like
yeah. Vesuvius was a thing.
Yeah.
When
he, yeah.
That's like a drop in the bucket in that timeline.
Yeah,
that was like 1,000 years ago or something like that.
About 2,000. Yeah,
2,000 years ago.
Not It's probably like about 60 or 70, wasn't it? I think when that place went up.
I don't know, somewhere around there. I guess it was the Roman Empire was still around, right?
It's first century. I'm pretty sure it's first century.
Okay. Man, the things I've forgotten.
Right.
We're talking about something last week, and I was like, man, it's not my area of expertise. It was I think it was when the Romans left the English island.
Oh, yes.
Lauren thought about how she had spared Crocus's life, which surprised the both of them. Never mind the outside world. She couldn't even predict her own thoughts or actions anymore. Lauren was startled when Toole said adjunct. She found him standing over her, frost-covered and steaming in the heat. He noted she'd been wounded, and she gruffly told him it was from a skirmish and it was over now. She awkwardly pushed on the poultice she held to her shoulder. He knelt to assist her, which initially surprised her. When he told her they had little time since the opening to the barrow awaited them, an expressionless mask settled over her face, and she jerked a nod. I guess she was surprised because she thought he was being nice, and he's...
Oh, right.
And then she gets pissed off when he's not being compassionate.
We got to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're slowing us down. Let me do this real quick. He deftly tied the knot with the strips of cloth, using his shredded hands. The fingernails were blunt, polished brown, and curved. These descriptions of the Talan Imas bodies, of everything being polished brown or root-like or however their appearance is now, it always is really interesting to try to help envision them.
Yes. I think of them almost like fossilized humans,
Mm-hmm. They're always creaking and clacking around as they move, and the rotted furs covering them.
I'm not sure if he said it yet, but it may have. But I think it comes at one point where they mention that Toole. It sounds like you're on a ship. When you hear him kind of creaking, it's like you hear the tendons moving, and it's like, wow, that's kind of an oddly disturbing thought,
Yeah, I think it was last chapter, I think it was chapter 15. In the second part of the chapter, he was laughing or something. I don't know. Actually, I don't remember exactly which chapter it was, but he was laughing, and as his shoulders shook, Erikson mentioned the rattling of the bones and stuff like that. Yeah. Lauren commanded Toole help her to her feet. Then they walked to the barrow marker. It was now shattered. She asked where the opening was. Toole said, "I will lead, adjunct. Follow closely behind me. When we are within the tomb, unsheath your sword. The deadening effect will be minimal, yet it will slow the Jaghut's return to consciousness. Enough for us to complete our efforts." Lauren took a deep breath and shrugged off her doubts and thought there was no turning back now. Toole spread his arms to the sides, and the hills in front of them blurred. A strange mist appeared in front of them. He stepped forward. Lauren followed and recoiled at the stench that reached her. The stench that filled the air was made of centuries of pulsing sorcery, the countless wards dispersed by Toole's Talon powers. She continued on after Toole. They entered the hillside and followed a rough corridor into darkness. Frost covered the boulders that made the walls and ceiling. The air grew colder as they walked. Thick green and white ropes of ice tracked the walls. The floor, which was originally of packed earth, became slabs of stone slick with ice. I'm getting an image of when people go under glaciers. How about you?
I think I have a particular image in mind. It's from John Carpenter's The Thing. And it's when they're under McCready's hut and they're finding the improvised spacecraft that the Thing wants to flee in. and it's like, this tunnels in these ice is, but what's funny, yeah, it starts off like it's part of the earth, but then it seems like it just kind of moved into ice before she noticed it.
Mm-hmm. Lauren's face and extremities grew numb from the cold. Her breath became visible in the air. She noticed strange red ochre symbols painted in the ice. The symbols touched something within her, but when she tried to concentrate on recognizing them, the familiarity vanished. Tool paused and told her his people had visited the prison and added their wards to those of the Jag Hut that were there before. Lauren was irritated and asked, "What of it?" Tool stared at her for a moment, then said, "Adjunct, I believe I know the name of this Jag Hut tyrant, and I am now beset by doubts. It should not be freed. Yet, like you, I am compelled."
I'm kind of disturbed by the fact that this bothers him.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and he says he knows the name of this Jag Hut tyrant.
Yeah.
It made me think, how many other Jag Hut tyrants were there that he wouldn't have known of this Jag Hut tyrant specifically because there were multiples of them?
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of time, dude.
That's true. That's true.
It's a lot of time. They get bored. I would have to do something. Occasionally take over the continent every couple thousand years, keep them on their feet, keep them on their toes.
The Jag Huts?
Yeah, just keep everybody. It's just to keep anyone on their toes. Just every now and then show up, just to kind of like the people think you're gone, then you show up every now and then.
They seem perfectly happy not getting involved at most of the time.
The Jags do, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
They seem to be, but apparently it's pretty bad when they do.
Yeah. Lauren's breath caught. This is in response to Tool saying it's a bad idea to let this guy out.
Yeah.
Tool went on, "Adjunct, I acknowledge the ambivalence you have been feeling. I share it. When this is done, I shall leave." Confused, Lauren asked, "Leave?" Tool nodded and said, "Within this tomb and with what we will do, my vows are ended. They will bind me no longer. Such is the residual power of this sleeping Jag Hut, and for that I am thankful." Lauren asked why Tool was telling her this. Tool said, "Adjunct, you are welcome to accompany me." She opened her mouth, but could think of nothing to say, so she shut it again. Tool went on, "I ask that you consider my offer, Adjunct. I shall journey in search of an answer, and I shall find it." Lauren wanted to ask him what he was trying to find an answer to, then a surge of fear stopped her. She thought, "You don't want to know. Remain ignorant in this." Good call. She said, "Let's get on with it." Tool continued onwards. After a moment, Lauren asked how long this would take. With amusement in his voice, Tool said, "Time? Within this barrow, Adjunct, time does not exist. The Jag Hut who imprisoned their kin brought an age of ice to this land. The barrow's final seal. Adjunct, a half-league of ice stands over this burial chamber, still. We have come to a time and place before the faltering of the Jag Hut ice, before the coming of the great inland sea known to the Imass as Jagra Till, before the passing of countless ages," Lauren interrupted. "And when we return, how much time will have passed?" Tool said, "I cannot say, Adjunct. I have never done this before." A few things here.
Yeah.
First, if Lauren hadn't interrupted him, how long would that have continued?
I think we discussed this in a previous episode. I think that if Tool's honorifics were listed, might take a year or two just to get through his titles.
Yeah, and this one he's talking about the history of when this was put in place.
It could go on for longer than that. I may be lowballing it on that one. It could be higher than that.
Second, we may have a clue as to why the Imass went on their genocidal rampage against the Jag Hut in this paragraph. Tool said the Jag Hut brought an age of ice to this land, which acted as the barrow's final seal. If the Jag Hut could effectively create an ice age on command, this would endanger any living creatures on the continent, including the Imass. The Imass would view that as an existential threat.
Oh yeah, that would kill all the life that they depended upon to hunt. And in fact, kill them as well. But think about that ice. That's half a league deep.
Mm-hmm.
So what is a league? What do we say? I'm so sorry.
It was 3 miles.
It's like
wasn't it?
It's like 3 miles. Yeah, it's something like that. It's I got like
1 league is 3.45 miles.
So it's a mile deep ice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it was half a league, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We got ice here that's deep. Do we have mile deep ice?
No, I don't think so. I don't even think that stuff off the Antarctic shelf is that
it's
deep.
Not particularly. Yeah, I was going to say it's not. I mean, it's thick, but it's not. It's not. It's not thousands of feet thick. It may be thousands or hundreds of feet thick, but I don't know. But
yeah, thousands maybe, but not miles.
Yeah, not miles. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's pretty.
I think
that's wicked.
We have to look
that's
that
powerful.
up. It is. Yeah. The third thing I wanted to bring up with this chapter is the fact that they froze time is crazy. Right? I want to know more about that. Is Amtos Phylax so cold it can freeze time?
I did not think about it that way. I just assumed it was just a raw power kind of thing. But now that you bring it up like that, I think it must be. It must be so cold it can freeze it, baby. That's awesome.
It sounds like one of those powers you'd have when you're playing with your kids, or you hear two kids playing. It's like, oh yeah, well I'm gonna do this. Oh yeah, well I'm gonna freeze time.
Oh my gosh, that's the fun time with weapons episode.
Yeah,
you can't use your powers, Cartman.
South Park again.
Yeah, again. Sorry, that is that exact reference.
Yeah,
to making up powers on the fly.
Yeah. Now, speaking of kids, I have a funny story from one of my kids from yesterday. You want to hear it? It's not Malazan rated. Okay.
I don't care.
So
I don't care what we're professional digressors, folks. Please.
We went to 2 different stores yesterday to get stocked up for the week, and so we went to Costco first, which is a bulk warehouse type thing, and generally when I take the kids shopping, they'll ask me for things that they want. When we got home, my youngest, we had to go to the grocery store next, and he was telling me that he wanted a treat. And he wanted a donut specifically. I said, well, I already got you 3 things you asked for at Costco. And I said, how many things am I supposed to get you? And he says, 4. I lost it. I lost it. I mean, this kid's pretty clever, just like...
It was brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant.
This is the same one.
I do, in fact, love that.
This is the same one that didn't know how the stuff got on the roof. Yeah. Of course.
Oh, that's brilliant, Steve. That's just the brilliance of that. Talk about on the fly thinking.
Just like that, he knew the right number. Amazing.
4.
Yeah, and I think he ended up getting 5 out of me. I think he wanted some seaweed salad too from the little sushi area that they have.
How can you deny a child who wishes some kind of salad of any type?
Yeah.
I guess it's kind of hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, this kid eats salad like crazy.
Okay, right on.
I will cut up a plate of a whole cucumber, a carrot, and a whole bell pepper. He'll eat the whole thing. I'm not kidding.
Wow,
that's crazy. Awesome. Young kid too. I think he's 7 now. So young.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Moving along. I'm going to give a warning on this next section here. This type of stuff is a real slog for me because I'm pretty disinterested in this team drama aspect of Crocus. So if you don't get my normal level of enthusiasm, I apologize in advance.
Yes, I don't love this. I don't love this. I was not into teen angst when I was a teen, so I am most assuredly not into Crocus's drama. I was this, it's just I'm kind of pretty much the same extroverted weird dude you know and love now, just younger.
Okay.
I think I'm more outgoing now than I was. I'm more outgoing now. I've polished it.
Yes, very outgoing for sure. Crocus rode a horse with Sari riding behind him. Her body pressed against his, and her arms were wrapped around him. He had more sweat on his face than the heat of the afternoon should have caused. His mental state was a mess. On the one hand, he had an attractive young woman holding on to him, and her breath was on the back of his neck. I was not going to mention this, but I'm going to do it. Another digression here.
All right.
There was a movie where Will Ferrell was talking to somebody about wrestling, like Greco-Roman wrestling. And he was talking about feeling the hot breath of another man on the back of your neck. Hilarious scene, dude. The way he says it. I got to look up what movie that was. It might have been
like Anchorman. I've not seen that.
I want to say no. It was The Ladies' Man. The movie was called The Ladies' Man.
Okay.
It came out in 2000, and it had Tim Meadows as the main character. It was playing on a skit from Saturday Night Live where he was the ladies' man. And
Oh.
Will Ferrell was the husband of the love interest for the ladies' man in that movie. So, yeah. That scene with Will Ferrell talking about the wrestling it's worth watching that whole movie just for that.
I know him. He's probably all like, have you ever felt a man's hot brain on your back of your neck?
You got it. You got it.
Okay.
Moving along. I had to add some fun to this section here.
I love it. Yes, thank you.
On the other hand, Crocus knew that Sari had murdered somebody, and the only reason he could think she had arrived at the hill was that she had been planning on killing him as well. He found himself too tense to enjoy sitting in the saddle with her. They hadn't spoken much since they had left Call. Darujistan was about a half day of travel away. She broke the silence first, asking if It-Kokon was far from their location. Crocus thought about laughing, but an instinct stopped him. He said he'd never heard of that place, and asked if it was in the Malazan Empire. She said it was, and asked if they were in the Empire. He growled, "Not yet," and went on to tell her they were on Genebakis, and updated her on the status of the Malazan conquest of the continent.
Dude, I've never thought about this till just now.
Mm-hmm.
Are we supposed to get shades of Luke Skywalker from Crocus?
You did mention that when he was complaining about the mules.
Okay.
That donkeys, mules, whatever is the true
animal.
It's still mules in this chapter, but originally it was donkeys.
Yeah.
He was complaining about not having horses, and you brought that specific point up, that it sounded a lot like, I want to go get the power converters, you know?
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. It's exactly what I'm thinking about.
Yeah. Okay.
Uncle Ben. Uncle Ben. Yeah, you know exactly. Thank you. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Sari said, "Oh, you're at war with the Empire then?" Crocus said, "More or less, though you'd never know it as far as Darujistan is concerned." She asked if that was the name of his town. He said, "Town? Darujistan's a city. It's the biggest, richest city in all the land." She was in awe. She excitedly said, "A city? I've never been to a city. Your name is Crocus, isn't it?" I don't know if I can do a voice. I'm going to leave it in.
Leave it. I want it.
He asked how she knew that, and she told him that's what his soldier friend had called him. He said, "Oh, of course." His heart had lurched when she had known his name. "What about Chalice, Crocus? Is your love so easily thrown away? You were ready to climb mountains."
Now, of course, I'm trying to think of the perfect. I still can't think of the perfect South Park reference, but there is one. I assure you that there is. It involves Canadians, and this is not an insult to my Canadian brethren, but we know how South Park views the Canadians, and I can't put my finger on it, but I can hear it. Especially when you say the name Chalice. I love you, girl. I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's just, but it's like, wait, Chalice? It's like all of a sudden, yeah, he's a kid. What do you want?
Yeah, teenager at that. Teenage boy.
Yeah. At least he's not Luke and didn't make out with his sister. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Sari quietly asked, "Aren't you going to ask me my name?" He asked if she could remember it, and she admitted she couldn't. Hearing the sadness in her voice, something melted inside of him, which made him angrier. He said, "Well, I can't very well help you in that, can I?" She seemed to withdraw behind him, and she said, "No." His anger fell away. He was ready to scream from the chaos in his head. He shifted in his saddle, which caused her to tighten her grip on him. He smirked and thought, "That's better." Then he thought, "What am I saying?" Sari asked him to give her a Darujistan name, his favorite one. He immediately said, "Chalice." "No, wait, you can't be Chalice. I already know a Chalice. You've got to be someone else." She asked, "Is she your girlfriend?" He snapped, "No," and stopped the horse. He got off the horse and said, "I want to walk." She agreed and said she wanted to walk as well. He said, "Well, maybe I want to run." She got in front of him and asked, "Run? From me, Crocus?" She wore a troubled expression, and he saw things falling into ruin behind her eyes, and he thought that he desperately wanted to know what those things were. For some reason, he couldn't identify. He knew that asking her what those things were was impossible. He looked... I can't...
I'm sorry. You know what's bad is like this is one of those moments that you wish this was on Audible right here and that you could just like hit the 1.5 speed real quick so we can just jam to the part where we have.
Is it at least fun the way I'm reading it?
It is. I love it, man. Thank you.
Crocus looked down and kicked a rock, then mumbled, "No, I didn't mean that. Sorry." Her eyes widened and she gasped, "That was my name. That was my name, Crocus. You just said my name." He frowned and said, "What? Sorry?" She said yes, though it wasn't the name her father had given her, and she couldn't remember what that was. He began to walk, and she fell into step beside him. They were about an hour from Catlin Bridge, and Crocus felt the panic inside himself subsiding. Maybe even it had burned itself out. He was relaxed, and this surprised him, since he couldn't remember the last time he'd felt relaxed in the company of a female. They walked in silence, and the sun sank to the horizon, shimmering along the blue and green line of Lake Azure. He pointed it out to Sari and said Darujistan lay on the south shore of the lake. She asked if he had thought of a name for her yet. Crocus sheepishly said, "The only name that comes to mind is my matron's." Sari asked if he meant his mother's name. Crocus laughed and told her not that kind of mother. He meant the Lady of Thieves, Apsalar. He finished by telling her it wasn't a good idea to take that name since she was a goddess and proposed Solar instead. She wrinkled her nose and said, "No, I like Apsalar. Make it Apsalar." Crocus attempted to say, "But I just said." Her face darkened and she insisted, "That's the name I want." He didn't press the issue and said, "All right." Sorry, now Apsalar from here on, said, "So, you're a thief." Crocus asked what was wrong with that. She grinned and said, "Given my new name, nothing. Nothing at all, Crocus." And then she asked when they were going to camp. He blanched and proposed that they push on, not meeting her eyes. Apsalar said she was tired and asked why they couldn't camp at Catlin Bridge. Crocus said he only had one bedroll. She could use it and he'd keep watch. When she asked what there was to watch out for, he rounded on her and said, "Why all these questions? It's dangerous out here. Didn't you see Call's wound? And how do we know the garrison's still there?" Apsalar asked about the garrison, and he told her there was one on the other side of the bridge, but it was a long bridge. She laughed and said, "Oh, come on, Crocus." She drove an elbow into his ribs and said, "We'll share the bedroll. I don't mind, so long as you keep your hands to yourself." Crocus just rubbed his ribs and stared at her. Something tells me he won't be able to fall asleep in his state of mind. What a mess.
Right? Yeah. You read this as uncomfortably as I read it. So, yeah. But, oh, Chalice, I love you. Wait a second. First time out of the city gates with another girl. Chalice is all but forgotten.
But then he tried to name her Chalice.
Yeah, right. So it's a penny saved worth two in the bush, right? Sorry. I'm needing a Boondock Saints rewatch. Sorry. People in glass houses.
There was a firefight. Yeah.
That is the
Willem
strangely
Dafoe's
uncomfortable
amazing
part.
in that. Yeah.
He is, and that is oddly uncomfortable. That's about, strangely enough, why is that the only uncomfortable bit of the movie for me is the firefight. It's like the rest of it, it's like, I roll with the rest of it fine. It's like I have no problem with that, but it's like, man.
Ron Jeremy wasn't uncomfortable for you in that movie?
Well, he was perfect. He is the ultimate sweaty
Bueno
white guy.
excelente.
Yes. He is Bueno.
He is the human Bueno excelente.
Yes, he is. I think that is who Garth Ennis absolutely has in mind. I don't know if he's ever said that, but that is absolutely who I always have in mind when I think of Bueno excelente.
Okay. Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah.
Now, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm relieved to be going back to a Kruppa scene.
And thanks for introducing me to a genuinely new sensation, being pleased to see Kruppa.
Maybe that was the intent all along.
That could be. I'm going to have to refer back to my Star Wars earlier. So with that, what does that make Kruppa? Is he our strange Obi-Wan in this?
Oh, man. Kruppa. Okay, so if he has to be a Star Wars reference.
Doesn't necessarily. I'm just curious because I got the Luke with Crocus for some reason.
He's the Jar Jar Binks. That's not fair, dude.
Oh, that's rough.
No,
That's
I'm probably
bad.
gonna-
That's
I'm gonna get-
brutal. Hate speech. Hate
Oh,
speech.
man. That was probably too much.
I don't
take
know.
it back.
I think it's
I
pretty
take
funny.
it back.
Do you? Do you?
I take it back.
Okay.
I think I have to. Yeah.
Why? You're allowed to think what you want.
It may have been a bridge too far.
I'm assuming that Kruppa serves a purpose. He's meant to be annoying. So if you're annoyed by Kruppa, then he has served his purpose. He's annoyed you.
Okay.
So if you want to see him as the Jar Jar Binks, because that is who he portrays himself as.
Okay.
He most assuredly portrays himself as the fool.
Yes. Agreed. Yeah. I don't know that if Kruppa's going to accidentally help win a battle by tripping over a droid and having it shoot a tank.
We know someone who would, though. We were just talking about him earlier.
Oh, yeah. We can't get to that yet.
Yeah. But we know someone who would most assuredly do that.
Good point. Kruppa cursed and glared over his shoulder at Murillo riding one of the mules and said, "Damnation! Can't you urge that beast any faster?" The mule refused to move any faster than a plodding walk. Murillo grinned and asked why Kruppa was in such a big hurry. Crocus could take care of himself. Kruppa retorted that it was Master Baruch's command that they guard Crocus. Murillo's eyes narrowed and he said, "So you keep saying." He asked if this was a favor from Mehmet and also why Baruch was so interested in Crocus all of a sudden. He pointed out that Kruppa relayed Baruch's orders, but didn't explain them. Kruppa stopped his mount and said, "Oh, very well. Mutiny in the ranks forces Kruppa's sly hand. Opan has chosen Crocus for whatever purposes the devious deity may devise. Baruch would have us keep an eye on the lad, and more, prevent any other powers from finding him." Murillo told Kruppa he should have told them that from the start and asked if Rallick knew. Kruppa said of course not. He was too busy dealing with his various responsibilities, which was the reason Rallick didn't accompany them on this trip. Kruppa finished by saying, "But why, pray tell, is Kruppa informing Murillo of such things? Clearly, Murillo knows more of Rallick's doings than poor, ignorant Kruppa." Murillo asked his meaning. Kruppa snickered and kicked his mount into motion again. Murillo followed him. Kruppa went on to say that as far as their present mission, what seemed a failure was in fact a success. Master Baruch needed to be informed of the nefarious activities afoot in the Gadrobi Hills. Murillo asked his meaning. Kruppa told him that even though he was only awake momentarily during the skirmish, it was clear that the woman held an Odotarl sword, which meant, as any child might guess, that she was Malazan. Murillo hissed between his teeth and said, "And we left Call back there? Are you insane, Kruppa?" Kruppa maintained that Call would be fine. Their need for haste overwhelmed everything else. Murillo quipped, "Except cheap deals with a certain stabler." I love that.
It's always back to the stable on this one, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, they could have had horses.
Yeah, they could have already been home.
Mm-hmm. He asked what the Malazan in the hills could be up to, and also told Kruppa not to try telling him he didn't know, otherwise they wouldn't be in such a hurry. Kruppa said, "Recall Crocus uttering that perceptive comment as we left the crossroads? Hunting a rumor, or some such thing?" Murillo groaned. "Wait a minute. Not that Barrow legend again. There's not a—" Kruppa stopped him when he held up a finger. He said, "What we believe is irrelevant, Murillo. The fact remains that the Malazans are seeking the truth of that rumor, and both Kruppa and Master Baruch suspect, being of equal intelligence, that they might well discover it. Hence this mission, my fluttery friend." I love how Kruppa says out loud that he thinks he's of equal intelligence to Baruch. Realistically, I think he's smarter than Baruch, but it's just funny that he said it out loud.
I do agree with that. I think you're right on all counts.
Kruppa waggled his eyebrows and continued, "Odotarl in the hands of a swordmaster of the Empire. A Talan Imass lurking in the vicinity." Murillo exploded.
In Odotarl, in a weird way, is that kind of like a Vorpal blade in its rarity in this world? Because they seem pretty rare.
How rare are Vorpal blades?
I don't know. Everyone always had one eventually in our group, but I don't think they're that. I think they're pretty rare though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but when you're the hero, you always
want a Vorpal blade. Oh, yeah, exactly. The Vorpal blade, man. You want the highest plus rating. You want that plus 16 for Vorpal Blade, where everything is a dismemberment of some sort. You know? It's like everything over 5 scores. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
It's an artificial scarcity.
Yeah, that's true.
We can't really go into it.
Yeah,
but we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, it's not like spice. I mean, it is pretty.
It is like spice.
Well, it kind of is. I mean, but is there? But there's way more of it in there than there is spice, because they at least with spice there's a way to make it. I mean, we know the way to make spice.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
All
if you have sandworms, I'm sorry. Good gracious, it's been Dune heavy, Dune-alicious episode of.
We've been very heavy on South Park references, Dune references, and deviations tonight. Outside of that,
Star Wars, too, yes.
Yeah, Star Wars, man, all over the place.
Oh my goodness, and advanced D&D, like you said. So.
Back to your point, I would probably say, yeah, you're right that there is more Odotarl in total than spice, but there is no industrialized method of extraction in the Malazan universe.
That we are aware of.
Okay.
That we are. I mean, I'm not, I have no idea.
Okay, just throwing that out there.
Okay. Erikson may have plans for that. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe he'll do an industrial age saga involving Odotarl slavery and child slavery like Dickens, but it'll be I got no idea what's going on with that guy.
Okay.
He just said better finish Witness or I'm going to be very severely disappointed, you know.
Second book's coming out. I think he's going to have it written by this fall, I believe. Either that or it was being finished very soon, and then it would be out by fall. One of those two. Either way, it's coming soon. I think he just posted about it on Twitter recently.
That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You go, Mr.
And it's
Erikson.
been how long has it been since the first book in the series came out?
It's not that long. I mean, I just bought it and read it. I think it was last year.
Was it last year?
Yeah, I think it was last year because.
Okay, so I only have to wait another year and a half probably.
Yeah.
Before I can read it.
So you can be screaming Witness all the way.
Yeah.
Hold on, I got to see when the first book was. Hold on.
Yeah.
When did that come out? It came out in July 21.
Awesome.
So
that's about 2 years. Man, I'm gonna wait like 3 years. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. At the revelation that there's a Talani mass lurking in the vicinity, Murillo exploded. He said, "What?" And he attempted to turn his mount around. The mount simply planted its hooves and refused. Murillo struggled and cursed. He said, "Call's all cut up, and he's got a Malazan killer out there and an IMAS? You've lost your mind, Kruppa." Kruppa crooned that he thought Murillo would be eager, nay, desperate, to return to Darujistan. Murillo stopped and rounded on Kruppa. He said, "Come on, out with it then." Kruppa's brows rose, and he asked, "Out with what?" Murillo said, "You've been hinting about something, poking me with it. So if you think you know something about whatever, let's hear it. Otherwise, we turn round right now and head back to Call." Murillo saw Kruppa's eyes darting around, and he smiled. He said, "Ha! You thought to distract me, didn't you? Well, it's not going to work." Kruppa raised his hands in surrender and said, "No matter whose brain was responsible for your scheme to return Call to his rightful title, Kruppa can do naught but eagerly applaud." Murillo was shocked and thought, how in Hood's name did Kruppa... Kruppa continued, "But all that is inconsequential when faced with the fact of Crocus and the grave danger he is presently in. More, if this young girl was indeed possessed, as Call suspects, the risks are frightening to behold. Was she the only hunter for the lad's frail, unprotected life? What of the 1,000 gods and demons who would eagerly confound upon at the first opportunity? Thus would Murillo, friend of long standing with Crocus, so callously abandon the child to the fates? Is Murillo a man to succumb to panic, to what-ifs, to a host of imagined nightmares slinking about within the shadows of his overwrought imagination?" Murillo barked, "All right, now hold your tongue and let's ride." Kruppa gave him a brusque nod. An hour later, as the sun set before them, Murillo started and threw a furious glare at Kruppa. He whispered, "Damn him. I said I wasn't about to let him distract me." "So what's the first thing he does?" "Distract me." Kruppa asked. Murillo murmurs something. Murillo massaged his forehead and said he was having dizzy spells and they should find a camp. Crocus and the girl wouldn't be back in the city before tomorrow anyway, and they likely weren't in danger on the road. Kruppa said, Kruppa admits to his own weariness. Indeed, a camp should be found, and Murillo can construct a small fire, perhaps, and so prepare dinner while Kruppa ponders vital thoughts and such.
Nice.
Murillo sighed, "Fine, just fine." How does Murillo, the one with the headache, get stuck with the duty of making the fire and cooking?
Because Kruppa is one slick rascal, that's why.
I took this fine, just fine.
Is Kruppa the reason why he has a headache? I'm assuming it's probably part of the reason.
He knows if he doesn't do it, it'll be a worse headache.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to stop the chapter there this week. We'll come back for the second half next week. For standout moments.
But it's still good.
Oh, yeah. I actually had more fun reading it than I thought I would.
Yeah, great job.
Really, given some of the content. Yeah, I thought it would be kind of boring today, but we kind of had some fun with it. So,
yeah.
For standout moments, seeing the inside of the barrow and finding out it was frozen in time was cool.
That's really cool. And I don't know why, but something about Tool, whatever it was that set him free there, I like it, but it's kind of frightening in a way. But I mean, I don't want to say too much more, but I really like Tool. Mm-hmm. And, so I kind of enjoy that, but there's something that he appears so powerful. I mean, we don't see him use it. His instances of magic have been so different. But just like him coming out of the ground that first time, that sword just spearing that guy. I mean, that's just some of the most brutal imagery.
That grabbing that ankle.
Yes.
That's straight out of the Living Dead, dude.
Yes. And it just breaks. I mean, it just breaks his bones like tissue paper. He's obviously very strong. And that sword just cuts through everything like it's made out of tissue paper. Everything seems to just part beneath that nasty thing.
And don't you misname that sword either. It's a flint sword, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a flint sword.
You better not misname that stone.
No. Yeah, it's Chalcedony or it can be called both, but it is yeah. But
is it Chalcedony or Chalcedony?
I'm not sure.
Okay. To be determined.
To be.
I enjoyed the back and forth with Murillo and Kruppa, especially when Murillo was told there was a Talani mass around and he freaked out.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the freak out moment too.
Mm-hmm.
Kruppa can be kind of annoying, but he always makes it worthwhile. You find out something intriguing, and you find out it's like, God, this is how he learns everything because he just wears everyone down, just wears them down,
like he did with the card game.
Yeah,
he just kept talking until everybody just gave up and he won.
No, they just quit. It's like I've been playing for 15 hours. I've had enough. I gotta go. I gotta leave.
Would he win the waiting game with the bridge burners?
Oh, dude. I don't know.
I think it's funny that all the mules seem to disobey everyone except for Kruppa.
Now, is that meaningful?
I think so.
There's got to be some meaning in this. Because this is not this is not the first time we see this.
Yeah. And this whole thing with Kruppa and donkeys, it's a thing.
It's a thing. It's a thing.
Yeah. Just remember him and donkeys.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
No,
bad.
It's fun.
It's funny though, but just remember that there's some interesting interaction between him and his donkey mount in terms of it's not a normal relationship from the perspective that it's not just a horse or something that he rides, right? Like something's going on there. I don't know that it's ever fully established.
I know. I can't remember what it is. It's like it's something.
We'll be looking for the clues as they come.
Yeah.
In. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. The final thing that I enjoyed in the stuff we covered today was Murillo getting stuck with making the campfire and cooking while Kruppa got to sit and ponder vital thoughts.
Dude, that's straight up Jedi. He is Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan him into doing that fire and everything. That's why he's got a headache. It's like he just said, you do want to make the fire. You do want to. It's real subtly in between there. Yeah, it's like, but he gripes about it the whole time. I love it. Oh, gracious.
Yeah. All right. You got any final thoughts before we drop off?
No, just great episode, man. I love it as we continue to build. This whole book is just an amazing book. It's such a great foothold into this series, and there's nothing lost. I just love going on this with you. It's great, man.
Yeah. Good job tonight. Thank you.
Yeah. Good job.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Yep.
We thank you all for joining us today.
Again, we really like to thank you for taking the time to be with us, and we've had a really great time talking about the topic today.
If you would like to support our show, you can find us at horsefrogproductions.com, where you can find our Patreon link. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description.
And if you'd like to contact us through email, it's at contact@horsefrogproductions.com.